Some men are remembered for what they said, some for what they did. But a rare few are remembered for what they stood for. Martin Luther King Jr. stood for justice, for equality, for peace. He wasn't just a historical figure, he was a living, breathing revolution wrapped in patience and grace. His voice shook buildings, but more importantly, it stirred hearts. His presence, calm yet commanding, led a nation gripped by fear into a movement grounded in hope. This is the story of a man who dared to believe in a better tomorrow. A man who, in the face of hate, chose love. A man who changed the course of history with just one tool, his dream. Let's walk through his life, not just to remember, but to awaken. Born in the shadow of segregation, Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. He came into a world divided, not just by class or money, but by skin. The South was wrapped in the tight grip of Jim Crow laws, and Martin, even as a boy, could feel the weight of injustice. He was raised in a loving home by a strong-willed father and a kind, educated mother, but even a nurturing family couldn't shield him from the realities of racism. One of his earliest memories was losing a white friend because of the color of his skin. The pain was sharp, but it wasn't just sadness. It planted questions. Why are people treated differently? What makes one race superior? Those questions would grow into a fire. A mind on fire. At just 15, Martin entered Morehouse College. He was young, gifted, and already aware of the world's brokenness. While his father was a preacher, Martin at first resisted following the same path. He wrestled with doubt. But reading the works of thinkers like Gandhi, Jesus, and Thoreau stirred something within him. He realized that faith wasn't about empty rituals. It could be the strongest tool for justice. He would go on to study theology and earn a PhD from Boston University, where he also met his life partner, Coretta Scott. She wasn't just his wife, she was his equal, his strength, a powerful force in her own right. Martin wasn't just preparing for a pulpit. He was preparing for war, the kind you fight without fists. Montgomery, the spark of a movement, December 1st, 1955. Rosa Parks took a seat on a bus and refused to give it up. That one act of defiance echoed across Montgomery. The black community had had enough. Martin, now a young pastor in the city, was chosen to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. He was reluctant, but something in him said, "This is the moment." For 381 days, black residents walked instead of riding segregated buses. They faced violence, intimidation, even the bombing of Martin's home. Yet he stood firm, always calm, always nonviolent. His voice carried power not through anger, but through unshakable conviction. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. It was a victory, not just for Montgomery, but for every black soul in America. Martin wasn't just a preacher anymore. He had become the voice of a movement. The battle for America's soul. The years that followed were filled with marches, arrests, and relentless resistance. Cities like Birmingham and Selma became war zones for civil rights. In Birmingham, police turned fire hoses and dogs on peaceful protesters. The world watched in horror. Martin was arrested. From jail, he wrote a letter that shook the conscience of the nation. A letter to white moderates who urged him to wait. He wrote, "Justice too long delayed is justice denied." His words had weight. They weren't written from a place of bitterness, but from a deep moral authority. He wasn't just fighting laws, he was fighting silence, the dream heard around the world. August 28, 1963, Washington, D.C. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. More than 250,000 people gathered. Black and white, young and old, shoulder to shoulder in hope. Martin took the stage. The speech he delivered wasn't just inspiring, it was immortal. "I have a dream," he began. He spoke of a world where his children would be judged by the content of their character. He painted a future that didn't exist, yet somehow everyone could see it. That speech became the heartbeat of the civil rights movement. It crossed oceans, it broke barriers. It shook the roots of a nation, the cost of greatness. But greatness comes at a cost. As the years passed, Martin's message became more radical, not in tone, but in truth. He spoke out against the Vietnam War, against poverty, against a system that crushed not just black people, but all marginalized souls. He was no longer just a civil rights leader. He became a threat to the establishment. The FBI monitored him constantly. He received death threats almost daily. Yet, he never stopped. He once said, "A man who won't die for something is not fit to live." He knew his days were numbered, but he kept marching, kept preaching, kept dreaming. Memphis, the final stand, April 3rd, 1968. Memphis, Tennessee. Martin was there to support sanitation workers demanding fair treatment. That night, he gave a speech that felt like a farewell. He said, "I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you." The next evening, as he stood on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, a single shot rang out. Martin Luther King Jr. was gone. But his dream, oh, his dream took flight, a legacy that breathes the world mourned. But it also awakened. Martin's legacy didn't die with him. It multiplied. His birthday became a national holiday. His words are etched in marble in memory. He inspired generations of activists, from South Africa to South Central, from the Arab Spring to Black Lives Matter. His dream still lives in classrooms, protests, legislation, and in the quiet hearts of ordinary people choosing to do the right thing. He was only 39 years old when he died, but he achieved more in those short years than most do in a lifetime. He didn't just lead a movement, he moved a nation's soul. The dream is yours now. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't asking us to admire him. He was asking us to join him. The dream doesn't belong to the past. It belongs to all of us. Every time we stand up for someone who can't. Every time we speak when it's easier to stay silent. Every time we choose love over fear, we carry his dream forward. He showed us that one person can ignite a revolution. Not with violence, but with vision. So what will you do? What will you stand for? If this story moved you, if it lit a spark within your spirit, then don't let it stop here. Like this audio. Comment below with your favorite quote from Dr. King. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that their voice matters. And subscribe for more stories that awaken the soul. The dream is alive. It's waiting. Will you carry it forward?